Deputy Minister, the members of the Department of Public Enterprises, the board and the executive of Alexkor, the officials or the staff of the portfolio committee. On behalf of the portfolio committee for public enterprise, we welcome all of you, honorable members, and everybody. Let me take this opportunity to give the secretary of the portfolio committee to help us or to take us through with the apologies.
Good morning, Chair and honorable members. The apologies I've received, it's from the Ms. Maotwe, who is attending another committee meeting, Mr. Kwankwa, who is attending the Chief Whip's Forum, and then obviously the minister is in cabinet meeting, and then the delegation of Alexkor is led by the department, led by the Deputy Minister, the Acting Director General, and the Director for Mining Enterprises, Ms. Morongwa Mtengu. And then the delegation from Alexkor is led by Dr. Hanekom, Trevor Fowler, Dion Bowers, Leilani Swartboy, Quentin Green, and Lebo Malakalak. Those are the delegation from Alexkor. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Tisang. Honorable members, those are the apologies. Without wasting time, I think that the minister or the deputy minister will help us in his opening remarks before we give to Alexkor to also take us through as to what position of these members that have been outlined by Tisang once again. So that we know who represent the board, who represent the executive, and so on. Without wasting time, let me go to you, Honorable Deputy Minister.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Greetings to the Honorable Committee. Greetings to everyone on the platform. Chair, let me just indicate that from the department, we have myself as well as the director overseeing Alexkor, Morongwa. There's also from the board, Dr. Hanekom, Trish Hanekom, who's the interim chair of the interim board, as well as the CEO, interim CEO, Mr. Trevor Fowler. Perhaps if there are other board members I may not have had sight of or noted, Dr. Hanekom will indicate when, as the accounting audit authority, they have the opportunity to speak to the committee on the work thus far achieved in respect of the turnaround plan that's been instituted in the entity. I may just say, Chair, that indeed we have come out of a situation in which it's been very difficult to account. I think we know of inability to submit reports, financial statements, etc. The work has been done to try and bring stability to the entity, but also to begin looking seriously at opportunities towards profitability of the entity. The work thus far done will be reported as part of the submission to the committee. Chair, without really delving onto the matters, I think the board is here. Dr. Hanekom is here, assisted by the CEO and the team at Alexkor. I'm sure they'll be able to take the committee through in respect of what is obtaining at the entity presently. So if you permit, Chair, can I hand over to Dr. Annekom?
Oh, thank you, Doctor.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Thank you very much, Deputy Minister, and good morning to honourable members and everyone who is on the platform. There is a presentation which has been circulated to you along with an update report from the department, and as the Deputy Minister has indicated, there has been really significant work done since we were last with you. There is a delegation from Alexkor led by Professor Fowler, and he will introduce them when he's presenting. But just to indicate that when we last met with you, we did indicate that we were in an extremely financially precarious position, and that there was work being done to ensure that we had a proper understanding of whether expenditure and income had been distributed correctly between Alexkor and the PSJV, and we explained some of the financial difficulties. Professor Fowler has really done incredible work to ensure that we correct irregularities and ensure that, as the Deputy Minister said, we stabilize both Alexkor and the PSJV. Secondly, there has been really a focus on increasing production so that we have profitability, and Professor Fowler will speak about that. And then thirdly, to say that we hope in early next year to be able to share with you some of the proposals that we would like to make for a change to the institutional arrangements that will simplify the current complexity of having the Rift Mining Company and Alexkor in a joint venture, and really challenging issues of how money is accounted for and how staff are employed. And then lastly, to say that Professor Fowler will also speak a little bit about what we are doing for a process to award new mining contracts, as most of the mining contracts are coming to an end in the near future. So if you allow, Chair, certainly we'll chip in on the questions, but we have the presentation is focused on things that we think would be important feedback for the committee. And can we allow Professor Fowler to present? Thank you.
Good morning, Chair, honourable members, honourable Deputy Minister, Chairperson. It's an honour to present to you this morning. Allow me to ask: could the presentation be flighted? It was sent to Parliament.
Yeah, CEO, I've made you a co-host, so you can flight it.
Oh, we can flight it. Okay. Thank you. Okay, can you see the screen, Chair?
Not yet.
Okay. Okay, while we're lighted. Oh, you've got it now. Thank you. Chair, just to focus, we're focusing largely on the turnaround strategy. And I just need to move it to the next slide. Thank you. And the remedial plans which you've undertaken. So one of the key approaches, Chair, which was in the strategy that we presented earlier, was really to employ large contractors to explore the mine, land, and marine concessions extensively, to reprocess the tailing dumps and increase the diamond footprint in the region. Let me move on to the next slide. Oops, back. The current mining operations are conducted by small contractors who are mainly allocated areas on behalf of the PSJV. If I can just remind members that the PSJV is called the Pooling, Sharing Joint Venture, which is as a result of the land claim, the community winning the land claim. And a court order then in 2007 created the PSJV, which is a 51% interest by Alexkor, a 49% interest by a company that was created through the court order called the Richtersveld Mining Company. That company has become dormant, but is being revived at the moment. The process of appointing members of the Richtersveld community to that company is quite complex, and they have attempted to get the members appointed to the board of the company, but it has still not been completed. So at the moment, they are court-appointed members representing the Richtersveld community. There are several mining contracts are coming to an end, and we issued an advert which was published last Sunday, and it's a request for qualifying principal contractors, which will be followed by a request for proposals. The qualifying contractors would be large contractors who have both the financial and the infrastructure, that's equipment that's required to do the mining. And the applicants would be expected to submit proposals for one or more of the mining areas, provided the mining areas are contiguous in both land and marine mining. The implementation will be during the fourth quarter of this financial year. We will also be undertaking rehabilitation of historic mining areas to address its long-term commitment. The historic and current rehabilitation already overlap. So the PSJV, when doing mining or giving work to a contractor, requires that they do rehabilitation. So any mining that's done now, rehabilitation is done at immediately after they complete that area. But the historic dumps are there, and we intend to start rehabilitation, which is based on a plan, a 7-year rehabilitation plan that has been drafted, and that will commence in the fourth quarter of this financial year. We are currently engaging with other mining companies in the region. One of the reasons for engaging with the mining companies is that the mining companies that are contiguous, who have areas contiguous to the Alexkor RMC concessions, have stopped mining. The large, so De Beers has stopped mining and sold their concession to West Coast Resources, and that West Coast Resources now is currently in business rescue. But the reason for having the discussions is to ensure that we are able to maintain the security in the area, because there has been, on those areas, there have been people doing illegal mining, and they've also been, there's been some fatalities that have happened. Progress will be given once the engagement has completed. We are inviting contractors for the turnkey management, employing the large contractors during the fourth quarter will be implemented, which I mentioned earlier. Let me go to the question around the current finances, and then there's a table with the finances. We will actually show you the numbers, and I'll ask Quentin Green when we get to that slide to, or Lebo Malakalaka, to speak to those slides. A thorough review is in progress of the financial position of Alexkor, and in order to regularize, we may need to restate the income and expenditure in compliance of the deed of settlement and unanimous resolution. So we've made significant progress in addressing what we have found in previous years, that some of the financials would have to be restated because the numbers didn't quite match in all of the records of the company. And to ensure that you have proper books for the audit, those would have to be addressed. And by the end of the financial year, we will have addressed it and put us in a fairly good financial position, and also good from an audit perspective. A detailed report on irregularities will be prepared when the review is complete. Let me go on to the financial slides. Quentin, are you, or Lebo, are you, if you could take over at this point? I mean, I could speak to some of the points after that.
Good morning, Chairperson, Deputy Minister panel. Thank you for this opportunity to address you on the finances of Alexkor and the pooling and sharing joint venture. We have presented to the committee.
Sorry, Quentin, let me just, I didn't quite introduce the team. Quentin Green is a technical expert, who we brought in to look at the finances. We also have on the team Lebo Malakalaka, who's the financial manager for the PSJV, Karbane Hussein, who's our IT manager, and we have Leilani Swartboy, environmental manager, and Dion Bowers, who is the mine manager. These are all people who are listed in the deed of settlement. Quentin, if you could go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Trevor. Thank you, Chairperson, Deputy Minister. We've presented to the committee the current financial position in two slides, one for Alexkor and one for the pooling and sharing joint venture. To deal with them briefly, I'll refer first of all to the Alexkor SOC income statement. This is for the period for the half year, 6 months to September 22. If we look at the year-to-date figures, we will see that the profit for the year-to-date at the bottom of that table reflects a profit of 3 million, which is good news, against a budget of 28 million. Now, that appears to be performance below budget, but it's not in fact correct, because if one looks at the income lines, there's a line on the budget for commission on diamond sales and a line for management fees. The board at its last meeting in October correctly decided that we should no longer be taking management fees out of the joint venture, nor commission on diamond sales, where we are already a 51% shareholder in that joint venture. So if we eliminate those two budget items, which total about 26 million, in terms of the board decision in October, then we are pretty much the 3 million profit for the year to date is pretty much in line with the budget. Chairperson, we are still working on these budgets to correct them so that in future we will take into account Alexkor's 51% proportional share of the profits or losses of the joint venture. Chair, at the end of the presentation, I'll just raise some concerns, but there is no reason to believe that we will not report a profit for the year to 31st of March 2023 for Alexkor SOC, which I think is good news to the committee. If one goes to the next financial position, that is the pooling and sharing joint venture, the good news here, if we look at the profit and loss of the year to date at the bottom, the PSJV is reporting a profit of 3.178 million against the budget of 2.74 million. Again, we believe that the PSJV will report a profit to the financial year end of 30 March 2023. So I think there's overall good news for the committee from the Alexkor state-owned company. Chair, I would just like to, in this regard, having said that we're expecting to report profits for both entities to year end, like to raise 3 words of caution where we still have certain information which we require to establish that position. The first one is that, as you're probably aware, Alexkor has a rehabilitation trust fund to do rehabilitation of the dune mining areas. We need to undertake an independent verification and confirmation as to what those current costs are. The current provision is at approximately 202 million rand, and depending on the outcome of that independent review, there may be a required adjustment in terms of costs to top up that fund, so to speak. The second issue that we are facing is that there are currently costs of about 4.5 million rand from the SIU relating to the Proclamation 45 investigation into Alexkor. And we are currently in discussion with the SIU as to the level of those costs. The final matter which may have an impact on the results is that SARS has recently assessed Alexkor for arrear VAT payments of some 38 million rand. We have already taken a chartered accountant opinion on this, and their belief is that the claim of 38 million is definitely overstated by about 15 million. And we are looking at some incorrect accounting treatments relating to the interest charges which have been processed in the books of Alexkor for the last number of years, which has given rise to the assessment change by SARS. So we will currently be going into discussion with SARS to see if we can reduce significantly that assessment claim of theirs. So those are the 3 provisos to the results. But in terms of normal operations, there's no reason to believe that out of normal operations, Alexkor and the PSJV cannot produce results to 31st of March 2023. Thank you, Chairperson. I don't know if there are any questions.
Thank you, Chair. Just to close, that the diamond production in the year ending the 21-22 year was 20,280 carats. We've reached just over 19,000 carats at this point, the end of November, and we will definitely exceed last year's production and likely to exceed the 2021 production as well. But a lot depends on the weather. As you know, there are sea days, and when there are 2 things that affect the sea days. One is the weather, the state of the seas, and the second is when there are floods, as there currently is one that has happened from down the Orange River. There's a lot of silt that comes down and makes it difficult for divers to go down, and unsafe for them to dive because the water becomes turbid. So just in closing, that's the current state. The one other area, just to as a comment on the CPA, that the Department of Agriculture, Land and Rural Development has been able to have general meetings of the CPA, and they've now had several, and they are having another one on the 8th, where they will be able to establish the members of the board of the Richtersveld Mining Company. Thank you very much, Chair.
Okay, before handing back to you, just to indicate that this is a report on where we are now in response to your correspondence for this presentation, but a reminder that we are sitting with long outstanding debt, and both Professor Fowler and Mr. Green have referred to the attribution of income and expenditure between Alexkor and the PSJV, and to underline that this will mean that we're going to have to restate financials for prior years. And the reason I'm raising this is that we're very acutely aware of the fact that you don't have our integrated report and audited annual financial statements for 2021-2022. We agreed with the shareholder to request the AG to opt in order to complete the 2022 financial audit, and going forwards, so for the current financial year and into the future, the AG would then do the audit themselves, and there has been various hurdles to cross. We are hoping that the AG will commence with their audit in the near future, but it has allowed us time to sort out numerous issues. Mr. Green referred to the assessment of the arrears with SARS. We have had a discussion with Commissioner Kisvetter, and he has indicated that he will ensure that every assistance is availed to us to ensure that the amount is assessed correctly, and if needs be, for payment to be scheduled over a period of time given the actual financial position, and that they would assist with financial modeling if need be, because they have an interest in ensuring that SARS receives what is due to it. And secondly, there has been a discussion with the DG of National Treasury. Unfortunately, the view that had been taken by the analysts at Treasury was that there was no financial predicament at Alexkor, because they did not realize that the rehabilitation funds and the funds for handover of the township are reserved funds that have nothing to do with the mining operations. So the financial position, although a lot has been done to put us in a better position than we were when we last appeared before the committee, we still have financial challenges that we are going to have to report to you on early in the new year when our information is more complete. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Dr. Anekom, the interim chairperson, and Mr. Trevor Fowler, the acting CEO. Honorable members, that is the presentation from Alexkor. Without wasting time, let me go straight to you, honorable members, to interact with this presentation. I'm starting with you, Honorable Kumede.
Chair, good morning to you. Good morning to the DM, DPE, the presenters from Alexkor. Thank you very much for the presentation. Chair, in many instances as the committee, we are confronted with a situation where the turnaround strategies that are commonly presented to us, they tend to give us a hope. But as they get implemented along the way, they kind of crumble and in fact be difficult to implement some of these strategies. I have one thing that I've noticed, that in many of the presentations, especially the SOEs, we are not presented the feasibility study. The feasibility study helps us to test some of the strategies that the SOE would have come up with, and see some of the challenges that may be manifested on the ground, and test the strategies whether they can stand the test of time. I just want to find out from the entity whether was the feasibility study done, and what are challenges that may have been manifested. I see when you look at the financial report, there are quite a lot of items that in fact were not budgeted for. And all of a sudden, those items, they come up, they end up then challenge the entity in terms of its financial crisis, because it hasn't been budgeted for. That's the challenge that the entity is facing. All what I'm trying to ask, Chair, is, was the feasibility study done? What was the outcome of such a feasibility study? I like, Chair, the tailing dams, because to me, it tells us that it's a strategy that repels the zamazamas, as well as the exploration, the rehabilitation. But these are some of the things, again, that will in fact cost the entity quite a lot. And as the presenter says, that they are very lean on finances. Has this been budgeted for, the tailing dams? As much as if you look at the tailing dams, it has a potential that we may get some residuals out of it. But we are not sure whether such residuals can in fact help boost the entity. The entity is in fact doing the work, which in fact is not the work that is assigned to them. The issue of an infrastructure is meant to have long been transferred to the municipality, as well as the running of the township is in fact not. The entity can't be the funder to the municipality. That's a very big challenge. That's the money that in fact should have or ought to have been saved by the entity, so that at least it begins to address some other items that are critical to the entity. So we'll be interested that what is their program to begin to transfer all these other responsibilities that are not theirs to the rightful part, whether it's the municipality, whether it's the community. Let me tell you, Chair, the challenge that we'll face, we are busy inculcating the culture of non-payment. As we go along, looking at these townships, doing all the work that's being done, the challenge that we are facing, communities, when these are taken back to them, they won't in fact be in a position to pay. They won't pay. The other factor, Chair, that interests me is the invitation of the large contractors. I like the 10p, but is it not killing some of the up and coming small business when they come and do the work in the area? All in all, I'll be interested to know what's the total cost for this turnaround strategy. Will then the entity be ready, or perhaps the entity is still expecting that the fiscus may help in a situation? Finally, Chair, does Alexkor have a sustainability character? We need perhaps the board and the representatives from Alexkor tell us the honest fact that does it have that sustainability character? Let me wait there, Chair. Thank you very much for the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me take now Honorable Kachalia.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, we are still awaiting audited annual financial statements. We need a clear answer as to when these will be provided. We cannot be presented with a statement that there are hurdles in the way. These need to be provided, and we need to know why they're not being provided, and we need to know exactly when they're going to be provided. Otherwise, this committee cannot do its oversight. We cannot be presented with a piece of paper which says these are our current state of affairs, because they hold no water legally. They hold no water in terms of audits. So that's point number one. Number two, we are presented with a situation where we say we have 3 million rand profitability. Frankly, this is paltry in view of the liabilities. We need to understand what the liabilities are to the PSJV, if any, what they are to the community trust, how this is intended to be paid, because the setup of this organization, this business, was to benefit the community, who have benefited zero to date. Then we are told that there's a SARS liability of 38 million, which we are told Alexkor believes is overstated. Well, we need to understand exactly why Alexkor reckons this is overstated, and to what value, and how they're intending to deal with this, because this is a significant amount by comparison to the paltry 3 million rand of profit. Then we need to understand exactly what the long outstanding debts are, in addition to the ones I have mentioned. We need to understand what the status of the township is and the implications of the rehabilitation fund. All this taken into consideration, it is my opinion and the opinion of many, many people that Alexkor is fundamentally insolvent. And we need to understand exactly what irregularities will add to this. We need to know what the status is of any other legal issues and charges that are being faced. For example, in respect of the cofferdams overuse. And we also need to take into consideration and get a response on the Zondo Commission's recommendation that criminal charges be instituted in respect of the Scarlet Sky investments. Now, we presented with a little document which says progress is based on detail and very little detail, except one unaudited piece of paper which talks to the financial situation. Now, in parallel, we have government's stated view that they are not going to provide any further funds. We have, as I've pointed to, a state of insolvency. We have many legal charges. We have charges or allegations of ongoing mismanagement and theft within the organization. I could go on. This is a parlor state, and this presentation covers, frankly, very little of it. What is going to be done? Is the board of directors trading recklessly? Because we need to take this up. If so, action needs to be taken. And believe me, action will be taken. I thank you, Chair.
Okay. Thank you, Honorable Kashalia. Honorable Komani.
Chair, Honorable Komani is not feeling well. She had to log off.
Okay. Okay, let's go to Kwanazi. Honorable Kwanazi. Honorable Kwanazi.
Sorry for the delay, Chairperson. Good morning, Honorable Chairperson. Good morning, Deputy Minister. Good morning, and honorable members and everyone in the platform. Honorable Chairperson, we welcome the report. We also acknowledge the progress done so far. But Chairperson, I only have maybe about 4 or 5 questions for clarity. First one is about the deed of settlement obligation. The last update we got, it was about April last year. Can I check, as much as we acknowledge the progress done on the completed task, DM, but I want to check from the Alexkor team, how far is the completion of the other tasks that are due for completion? Secondly, Chair, if they can repeat maybe in a very honorable committee said we need to be frankly told about the situation, about the financial position of the entity. I would really like the team to emphasize there and repeat if they have alluded to that. Thirdly, Chair, when we visited, we had our oversight there. There were issues raised by contractors, the way contractors are, the way they are being treated, the way they are renewed, or the way they act, the entity conducts its a business with contractors. Can I check, has that been reviewed, or if we can get an update on the mining contractors there? Chairperson, on page 11 and 12, the report indicates that Alexkor and PSV spend a lot of money on legal fees. Can I check why? And can I check the update on the results of spending that money, value for money of that exercise? And if they can talk to the consequence management update from the SIU investigation. That will be all for me, Chairperson. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Mkwanazi. There is no Honorable Butelis here. There is no Honorable Kwangwa here, as usual. And then let's go to Honorable Dlamini.
Thanks, Chair. Morning, colleague. I think we must try and be as realistic as possible when we speak. Honorable Kachala makes an acknowledgement that we don't have financial statements. He then quickly imagines that the company is insolvent. You can't make such a wild accusation without necessarily backing it up with audited financial statements. That's the whole point to us demanding audited financial statements. Let's not imagine problems. Let's wait for bread and butter issues, deal with bolts and nuts, real issues. Two, I think we have a problem. We have a new board and we are being presented with a turnaround strategy. But when we went there, the issues that were raised, more especially by the miners there, are not covered by this turnaround strategy. But in fact, the turnaround strategy now wants to invite big companies to mine. Alexkor is a mining company. It wants basically to invite its own competitors to do its work. And I'm not too sure how that will fit in with the current arrangement of those small-scale miners who are supposed to benefit there from those mining operations in line with the PSJV agreement. Be that as it may, maybe we need to get an explanation in terms of how are these big miners, when they come, are going to help turn around the situation at the mine. Remember, the mine is a product of a land claim that was given back to the community. So the beneficiaries at the end of the day must be the community. So we need now to be able to explain this tripartite alliance that we are going to get into. There's now going to be bigger mining operators, the mine, and the community. How is that going to work? The presentation doesn't get that far in terms of explaining that. The other thing, Chair, I'm not too sure if this turnaround strategy also covers I don't want to call it the intention, but an idea by the Department of Minerals and Energy to explore oil off the coast of Alexander Bay. If that's the turnaround, if it does factor that into play, how is that going to affect those future explorations if they do happen at some point? Because part of the problems that we have is that we have, I think this is the second board in a period of 5 years. And we are going to have another board very soon without necessarily seeing this turnaround strategy to fruition. So we are going to be moving around in circles if we're not careful. We must also be careful, Chair, of not waking up to the EFF accusing the Department of privatizing Alexkor, because those ones, I don't know if they have a problem with the Queen's language or something, but they tend to misunderstand this concept. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Dlamini. Honorable Isaac.
Thank you, Chairperson. Good morning, Deputy Minister, colleagues, and representatives from Alexkor. Yeah, as I always say, Chairperson, when you're coming at the tail end, you find yourself being repetitive, but I shall try my level best not to be repetitive. What I need to understand is from the presentation, look, there definitely is a huge SARS bill that has to be contended with, irrespective of what comes out of the discussions with SARS, there remains implications. So obviously, the question is, how has Alexkor been planning, or is it already planning in terms from a cash flow point of view to be able to fund the inevitable SARS bill, which is going to come up very soon? Chairperson, it is my understanding, after having looked at the report, is that the PSJV, somehow the others seems to still be operating at a huge loss. And my question is simply, why? Has a forensic on the PSJV financials been conducted? Or should there not be an audited income statement, at least every quarter, I would think, because the financials are all an ongoing issue. My colleague, Honorable Kachalia, raised way back in April, if I can recall correctly, regarding the asbestos removal contract, if the committee will recall, in Alexander Bay. What has become of this? What is the update regarding this? I don't hear much about it. And the fact, Honorable Chairperson, remains that the Richtersveld community has not benefited thus far. I mean, if you look at the joblessness and the unemployment in this area, which remains ridiculously high, then one must question what really is transpiring. The question again comes up, which I needed to get clarity on. Is the Alexkor company secretary also then acting as the PSJV company secretary? I just wanted to get clarity on that. I'll repeat it. Is the Alexkor company secretary also acting as the PSJV company secretary? Chairperson, what I'd also like to find out, which was alluded to, the current status around the cofferdams. There seems to be huge environmental regulations which are being flouted here, and it's been in the press and all over. I think we need to get some concrete feedback on that. Chairperson, this other few questions were asked. I think I will just move towards this last one. Of course, there remains numerous challenges regarding the sustainability and the finalization of the deed of settlement, which was just alluded to, and the issues regarding the various investigations into maladministration and allegations. We need to get some clarity on that. The issue regarding the SIU investigations, that was also alluded to, and I think we need to get some feedback on that. Chairperson, the other issues were all raised by the previous colleagues, so I will not be repetitive. Thank you again. Thanks.
Are you done?
Yes, Chairperson, I'm done. I said thank you very much. Thanks.
Let's go then to the next speaker, Honorable Piri. Honorable Piri. Is she still there? Seemingly she's no longer there. Okay, Honorable Malinga.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Greetings to yourself, members of the Portfolio Committee, the Deputy Minister, Committee staff, Alexkor Board, led by the Acting Chair and everybody on the call. Chairperson, let me quickly welcome the presentation given by the Alexkor Chair and Acting CEO. Chairperson, I just want the DM to respond on the issue if ECC turnaround strategy was presented to the executive. I'm asking this chair, at some point in one of the committees I served in, the SOC overtook the executive authority and presented the turnarounds, not Alexkor, the turnaround strategy before showing it to the shareholder. So I need to ascertain if this turnaround strategy was shared with the executive authority. Chairperson, on the issue of the rehabilitation of tail dams, I think they should move with speed, Chair, on those ones before we have the Jagersfontein case, and have how I want to check, Chair, how often does the Department of Employment and Labor check or monitor those dams? Because I know that tail dams, they do not fall under DMRE, as per the court order of 2008 that happened in Jagersfontein, which led to that disaster, but they fall under employment and labor. How often does employment and labor go and check if they are still in line or what do you call this thing? If they are still properly managed, Chair. Chairperson, on the issue of the financials of Alexkor, I think it's page 11 and 12 on there. Oh, I think this one, Honorable Mkwanazi has covered me on it. But Chair, if maybe they could also explain to me the spending of the 877, is it thousands or million? I think it should be 1,000 on consultation. What are they consulting on? Chair, if maybe I could get clarity on that one. I hear the acting CEO said that they have fatalities in terms of illegal mining that happened there. So I need to get what is their strategy to cap illegal mining to be a full-blown operation at Alexkor, Chair. Chairperson, on page 6 of their presentation, JSV will be undertaking the rehabilitation of historic and current mining areas. Chairperson, I just want to check, have they made sure that they have ring-fenced the environmental rehabilitation funds? And how much will that cost them? And how long will this work take them, Chair? Chairperson, also on page 5, is it page 5? Oh no, Chair. In their turnaround strategy, Alexkor highlights the handling of residential and business properties, as well as municipal infrastructure of the Rechtersveld community and Rechtersveld local community. Chair, why is this case given that the maintenance of these properties and infrastructure results in unbudgeted expenditure or cost? Maybe if I could also get clarity on that one, Chair. Chairperson, on page 7, presentation, PSJV is currently engaging other diamond mining companies to increase its foothold in the region. Does this strategy hinge on the 88 million funding application to the National Treasury in terms of capital investment requirement? Lastly, Chair, I think it's the acting CEO who mentioned the issue of large contractors. Are these large contractors that they have made a request for proposals from them going to be a detriment to the emerging mining contractors, especially the mining contractors that are black? Have they thought about this? Because they said, I think when he started, he said they are turning to larger contractors for their mining. And will these larger contractors basically absorb the local people? Because when we went there, Chairperson, one of the key issues that was raised by the community is that they were not given opportunities by either the small contractors or the mine itself. So maybe if I could be clarified on that one, Chairperson. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Malinga. Honorable members, I think that is the bulk of the questions that the interim chair, the deputy minister, and the acting CEO have to respond to. But I just want to advise honorable members, when we deal with these issues, we need to have an approach of linking the information we are provided now with the information we were provided previously. I think Honorable Dlamini was trying to help when Honorable Kachalia started going all over without necessarily twinning informations. We were presented here by the same interim chairperson with the acting CEO with a very positive presentation that seek to help us to understand what they are starting to do, because we might not lose sight of the fact that there are a lot that has happened in this department. I mean, with this portfolio, with this entity. This entity, always we must bear in our mind, is a result of state capture that took place there, and a lot has been destroyed or reversed in terms of making that entity profitable. Therefore, all these attempts through the presentation we have been receiving are attempts that tries to turn the situation around. Therefore, I will appeal to members that we are not in a political wrestling stadium here or ring. We cannot do that. We've got a parliament to do that. Here, we cannot play an oppositional role. We know the problem of the fact, I mean, we do appreciate that the financial statement has not been presented for a while, and we would like, as part of our oversight, to put pressure to this. But we cannot put pressure without understanding some efforts that are being made in order for that financial statement to be presented. I will appreciate if members do take those into consideration when making their presentation, instead of just hitting with eyes closed with everything. Thank you.
Point of information and point of order, Chair.
What is your point of order, sir?
Chair, I take I cannot sit down and not respond. Can you protect me, Chair?
No, allow Honorable Kachalia to say something.
Chair, there was nothing of political point scoring in what I said. I asked cogent questions about annual financial reports. I pointed out what the presenters had said in terms of profitability versus what they had said in terms of debt. I asked questions in that regard in terms of outstanding debt, and I want to and the inability of any of government to provide any funds in this regard. Those questions are cogent questions, particularly as we don't have financial statements. So I will not be treated in this fashion, sir. And I was not making a single political statement. If you can point to one, then I will retract it. I have pointed to the speaker to a number you have made in the past, but that's a separate issue. Point to what political statement I've made. I've made none. I've responded to what is said in terms of the figures that were provided, and I asked adjacent questions. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. That's not a point of order in the first place. You were trying to...
I said point of order and point of information, Chair.
Maybe that's your point of information. Honorable members, can we take this to the Deputy Minister and his
For the GM.
and the board. Honorable Deputy Minister.
Chairperson, in my hand before the GM.
Okay, Honorable Malinga, sorry, Deputy Minister.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Sorry to do this to you, but I don't recall you mentioning any one member who has made a political statement. If what Kachalia says, he thinks he's the one or he's the culprit who did that, if the shoe fits him.
Chair, you will recall you mentioned my name exactly.
Can we leave that at that level? I don't want to bog this meeting into that tick to tat. Let's leave it there. let's
No,
go.
but Chairperson, you should rule Honorable Malinga out of order then.
Hi,
No, no,
Isaac.
No, you are out of order.
No, I'm not. You are out of order.
Honorable Isaac. Honorable
Yes.
Isaac,
Hey.
wait until you become a chair of this entity for this portfolio.
Which part is out of order? Let the
Okay.
chair chair the meeting. Which part is out of order? Can you allow the chairperson to chair the meeting?
Yeah. Take the Deputy Minister.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you for the opportunity. For appreciating the presentation that's been made. I will, without really much shed light on the elements of the strategy, the basis for which they are proceeding in the fashion in which they are.
Minister.
Hello, Chair.
Yeah, just switch off your face and
Video.
then yes, thank you.
No, thank you very much, Chair. Thank you very much, Chair. I was saying, Chair, I will, without much ado, ask the Chair of the Board, Dr. Anekom, as well as the CEO, to really speak to the questions that were raised, particularly the basis for which the strategy going forward has the assumptions underpinning it and the progress so far recorded. I think the questions merely sought to interrogate that. Perhaps at another time, Chair, we may comment on some of the things. I may be offside, but it would just be to appeal, Honorable Chair, that if there is to be any exchanges between the honorable members, if that could take place when we are done with the business, so that we are not exposed. Some of us, I'm just saying other officials as well, I don't mind, I'm part of this, but there are officials and other people, they should not live with a bad impression about Parliament going forward. It's just a comment, Chair. If I'm out of order, you may rule at an appropriate time. So with your permission, can I ask Dr. Anekom to come in?
Thank you very much, Chair and Deputy Minister, and also thank you very much for all of the questions and comments. I'm sure that many of the questions and comments would have been exactly the kind of questions and comments we would have made if we were not board members and were parliamentarians, because obviously the SOE and its interest in the pooling and sharing joint venture, which is for the benefit of the Richtersveld community, has to be uppermost in our minds. And I hope that the portfolio committee will have some comfort that notwithstanding the difficulties, progress is being made. So I'm going to just deal with two issues before handing over to the interim CEO, and then I'll also deal with some issues right at the end. But just to call a spade, we're sitting with a situation where governance was not in a good state when we were appointed as a board in the beginning of the year. And we moved extremely speedily to get an interim CEO in place. And we didn't think this was the meeting to do that, but we have also managed, with the help of the department, to contract in high-level expert input to assist with fixing what was really quite severely broken and is still quite broken. But we are dealing with a mine that has been mined for over 100 years. Mines are not mined forever. And there are big economic succession plans in the West Coast, and most specifically Buhubai and the Green Hydrogen Project. And There was the Green Hydrogen Conference in Cape Town yesterday. I know that members of the CPA were present at that event. Some of the plans for that area are plans that will take shape on community land. And I think the comment about the benefit to the CPA is very important, because in fact, it's probably the economic succession that is going to be of more benefit economically and socially to the Richtersveld community than the mine can ever be. But until those projects come online, we have one challenge, which is profitable mining. And ensuring that through the profitable mining activity, that there is not a complete breakdown of law and order, and as has happened on adjacent land on the West Coast, rampant illegal mining. So I wanted to comment on that so that it's clear that what is the context of a turnaround. The context is that whether, in fact, even if we couldn't have profitable mining, it would be absolutely critical to ensure that until these other projects materialize, that there is the best possible management of the mining operation at Alexander Bay. So the second point I wanted to make is that I think I can't overstate the challenges that the management team is faced with. It's a 24/7, 365 days a year job. As the board chair, I didn't think that I was going to have so much of my year eaten up by Alexkor, and I speak on behalf of my fellow board members because I think that there has been challenges that we would never have anticipated in agreeing to serve on the interim board. But the management team that is there, who are faced with a new crisis every day, are punching way above their weight and systematically solving problems. And they have got a supportive board that is self-critical and is doing its best to ensure that we are systematic in identifying the problems and solving them. So I thought that I would make that comment at the beginning because we do see comments that are made, get tagged in social media, etc. I'm not sure where the concerns are, and it might be something to get the detail from members of the committee on ongoing mismanagement and other concerns that there might be. Because I think that it really would be true to say that there is systematic improvement. There are many, many things that still need to be sorted out, and there's detailed questions you've asked, which I'm going to hand over to Professor Fowler to respond to. When he has responded to all the issues, if there's anything he hasn't covered, I'll cover it, and I'll also speak specifically about some of the governance issues and the delay in the audit and what the reasons are behind that. So if I can hand over to Professor Fowler, thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and Dr. Hankon. Let me go to the key issue that has gone through many questions, the question of the large contractors. The the sustainability of the mine is based on ensuring that you are able to mine and retrieve diamonds which are sold. Now, on the books until recently, there were 145 small contractors. And the small contractors are attempting to mine with limited resources. In fact, to give you an example, I received a call from a person who said they wanted a letter to say they had a contract because they were going to Dubai to get some money. Now, the question is that the person was given the contract 2 years ago and was still looking for money to mine. And I think this is the key issue why we're looking at large contractors. And I'll explain the process of the large contractors. Firstly, the large contractors are going to have to show that they have the funds and equipment to undertake the work. Secondly, that is a part of the requirement of them being receiving the contract. They would have to partner with smaller contractors, and in particular, contractors from the Richtersveld.
And you want to enforce that we have a good story to tell, I'm sorry. I rather stay unemployed. Sidelining ANC because I'm telling the truth. Sidelining, but somebody must tell you. You fucked up, especially for them.
CEO, there are people are making noise.
Yeah, I was hearing that, sir. Let me proceed that they would then work the smaller contractors, and particular emphasis on contractors from the Richtersveld, would be partnered. They would be part of the large contract. But the difference is that there would be funding and support for their development and ensuring that in the future, they would be able to become larger contractors and more effective at the work they were doing. In one area, we have had 4 or 5 contractors go into an area over a period of many, many years. That same area is now being mined by a contractor who's a local contractor, but was able to get support from a large investor and has started mining that in a real way, where they are mining 320,000 tons a month. They're processing 320,000 tons a month. And because of that, they currently produce almost a third of the total contracts, the amount of diamonds that are produced by the company as a whole. So it does show that if you've got the money, you've got the support, and the person is a local person, they're from the Richtersveld, that can happen. So the point is that it's not not large contractors to exclude small contractors, but to empower small contractors to be a part of a large operation that ensures that both the Richtersveld Mining Company, the Alexkor are sustainable. And I think that is really the issue that why we're taking on large contractors. And it's certainly not to exclude small contractors. Then I will definitely say that the audited financial statements are indeed a challenge, but we've had to really look at the financials, the previous financials, and found that there were errors there that we are now correcting. So we're going back several years to do those corrections, and I'll ask Mr. Green to touch on that in a minute. Let me then come to the question that I mentioned, that we were engaging with the previous large mining companies, De Beers and Transhex. Both De Beers and Transhex have sold their concessions to small contractors, to small miners, junior miners. And in one of the cases, which is the sale of De Beers to West Coast Resources, that company is now in business rescue. But they are, and largely because they're unable to secure the area that they're in. And when we talked about the fatalities, we were not talking about fatalities that are on Alexkor concessions and the areas that we mine, but are areas contiguous to to the concessions of Alexkor RMC. And there are no illegal miners that are operating within the concessions of Alexkor RMC PSJV. These are adjacent to us, and the reason you have to engage is to ensure that there is security, because the reason for the need for security is to ensure that other developments that the government is undertaking is able to proceed. And I give a good example that tomorrow there are investors coming to Alexander Bay after they have left the hydrogen conference, which is taking place in Cape Town, which started yesterday. That those investors are from all over the world, and they are looking at putting in a deep sea harbor at a place called Buhu Bay. And that investment, the hydrogen investment alone, is about 5 billion rands, and the harbor is a lot more. And the reason for the security is that if you didn't have the kind of security and the fact that we are able to continuously mine the area and do so safely, that this would not be able to take place, because it would be overrun by people who are unable to mine safely, and would result in what I would expect, more fatalities in the area, and the investment that government wishes to make there would not be able to take place effectively. So I think it's one of the reasons that we do have to continue to engage with the larger companies like De Beers, is to ensure that they fulfill their obligations that they undertook when they undertook mining, and the obligations that Alexkor is undertaking responsibly, which is that once you complete mining, you ensure that you rehabilitate the area. You don't sell it off to a smaller contractor that is unable to undertake the liability. The next question that I wanted to address was the question of the fact that about cash flow, whether we had looked at cash flow. Certainly we do look at cash flow. And it does show that for the previous year, ending 2022, that there has been an increase both in the actual revenue and in the question of losses. So in the last year, in financial year 2022, there was indeed a loss. In the previous, in this year, it's not a loss, but a profit. So it does show that there is some progress. The question that was asking whether the tailings dumps are costly. Indeed, it is costly to do rehabilitation. But as I indicated in the presentation, that all the current mining has rehabilitation as part of the work. So as they complete an area, it has to be rehabilitated immediately upon completing an area, so that rehabilitation is done concurrently. What we are referring to is the historic rehabilitation prior to the 2007 period and prior to 1994. Those areas do need to be rehabilitated, and government did provide funds for that, which has grown over the years, and it's in a rehabilitation fund. And some of that money would be used to ensure that the areas are rehabilitated. And if there are residual diamonds and in the dumps, because we have new technology, we have found that when you rework them, you do find diamonds, and often they're quite valuable. That would be used to certainly to ensure that there is investment in what is called post-mining economic activity, so that we put in place the infrastructure to ensure that there is economic activity in the area after mining. So we need to do that as we are mining and as we are addressing the rehabilitation. The question of the town handover, the responsibility of the mine currently, which is to provide water and roads to the current town of Alexander Bay. We have had discussions with the municipality, and that has been led, and we've been assisted by the provincial government of the Northern Cape to ensure that there have been discussions, and the electricity is at the point of being handed over. The work that has been done to refurbish the transformers and the lines is currently being completed. And all that remains now is a community meeting to ensure that the community understands the process of handing over, which has been agreed with the municipality. And indeed, one of the big challenges that should be looked at is that the cost of providing those services by the municipality to the community is much higher than what is currently being paid by members of the community, because the mine has been subsidizing it over the years. And so one of the key challenges is to ensure that there is a transition period from moving from the costs that are currently there to the costs that the municipality would have to charge to make it a viable operation. But certainly there is progress in that area, and one of the requirements of the deed of settlement is the handover of the township, Alexander Township, to the Richtersveld municipality. And indeed, the one difficulty that I mentioned is that we have to ensure that the community is taken along. And certainly we've received some support from NERSA, the National Electricity Regulator, who have indicated that the process must include the community, and they've been a part of our meetings. And we are now at the point where the first phase of electricity can be handed over. The next phase, which is about the water, and the community of Port Nolloth is dependent on water from Alexander Bay. And certainly the Richtersveld community has been assisting in this period when there is extensive load shedding, which creates a real problem in pumping water some 90 kilometers to Port Nolloth. And we've had to ensure that the equipment that we have, and we've had to purchase, the process of purchasing new generators to take up the periods where there is no electricity generated by Eskom, that during those periods the pumping continues with generation. But that hopefully that cost will be taken from Alexkor to the community, to the municipality at some point. But I think the key question that we have to consider, which I think is also an issue of Parliament, is how do you give the municipalities the support to address the transition from what is a subsidized cost to a full cost recovery, which is what the municipality has to charge. The one point on the asbestos removal contract, let me ask Leilani Swartboy to answer that. She's our environmental manager, just to give you some progress on the asbestos removal contract update. Ms. Swartboy.
Thank you, Mr. Fowler. Good morning, colleagues, Deputy Minister, Chairperson, Interim Chair, Interim CEO, and members of the Portfolio Committee. I just need clarity, is the question referred to the asbestos? Is it based on the historic asbestos tender that was out? And what exactly do we have to report on, as this was concluded in December 2018, and it was part of the phase 1A demolition and of buildings and structures and removal of asbestos to the Vissershok registered asbestos site in the Western Cape. The work was done. The tender was awarded in 2017. The work was completed in 2018. All documentation was signed off by ourselves. Input was given from DMRE and National Treasury. The CEO of Alexkor did the final sign off at that stage, and National Treasury did all the payments. There were extra work identified during the time that the contractor was busy with the demolition and removal of asbestos, and the extra work that was needed was that work was not included in the scope, and we did. It was about 6 to 7 million extra that was paid to the project, and National Treasury did approve that. So I hope this answers the questions. Thank you, CEO.
Okay, thank you very much. Let me ask Mr. Green to just to answer on the financial questions that he said he could answer. Mr. Green, Quentin.
Thank you, Chairperson and Deputy Minister. There are a couple of aspects related to the finances on which respect questions were asked that I'd like to touch on. The first thing I'd like to say is we have not reached, as the Chairperson of Alexkor said already, we have a way to go in terms of our restitution of the accounting system that we have, but we are a long way down that track already. We have established a list of the 25 most critical items that we need to deal with, and we'll be dealing with them over the next few months. But in response to specific questions, the first question related to the statement about the insolvency of Alexkor and the PSJV. At the 30th of September, and insolvency, let me just say, is defined as liabilities exceeding the assets of a company. However, at the 30th of September, the assets of Alexkor SOC Limited exceeded its liabilities by 307.2 million. So that is still significantly solvent. However, in contrast, the assets of the PSJV were less than the liabilities of PSJV by an amount of 54.5 million. So the overall solvency of Alexkor consolidated at the 30th of September is 252.6 million, which is not a bad figure in terms of solvency for the company. Chair, that relates to the solvency. Questions were raised about and the chairperson of Alexkor alluded to it as well, of the long outstanding debts, and questions were also raised about our ability to pay the SARS VAT assessment if we were unable to reduce the assessment. Chair, about 3 to 4 weeks ago, we did a month-by-month line item cash flow projection through until March 2024 to look at our cash flow situation on a monthly basis. I want to tell the committee that we have provided 45 million rand for arrear payments to creditors, which is more than sufficient to meet that arrear liability. And we've provided for that at the rate of 2.5 million rand per month until March 2024. So that is built into our cash flow. We have further provided in December 2022 for a payment of 38 million to SARS in the event that we are unable to reduce the amount of that assessment. And we're reasonably confident now, after work done by an independent auditing firm, that that assessment should at least be reduced by 15 million rand. That's where we stand, and we're of the opinion that we can reduce it even further. Chair, questions about that? The cash flow up until March 2023 would, at worst, in the worst case, reach a situation in a month where we would 10 to 15 million have a 10 to 15 million overdraft requirement. Now, 10 to 15 million overdraft requirement, given the fact that our revenue is conservatively done at 13 rand to the dollar, is going to be unlikely to occur. In any event, good financial management would manage your cash flow to such an extent that you could circumvent a situation where you reach that. So overall, I believe that we do not have cash flow concerns at this time arising out of operations. Finally, Chair, that I just want to say that the prior year adjustments, which both the chairperson and the acting CEO referred to, relate to interest charges on the rehabilitation loan, which we believe have been accounted for incorrectly in the past couple of years. If we make those adjustments and correct them, it would result in the ratio on which SARS has calculated this assessment to adjust in favor of Alexkor. And we're of the opinion that that is the case at the moment. Chair, just relating to the question about whether the cash flow provision makes provision for the additional amounts required for the rehabilitation costs, what I can tell the committee is that an independent assessment was done last in March 2020, and that assessment was done at 200.5 million rand, and that we can measure against the current ring-fenced bank account for rehabilitation of 204.9 million. The adjustments that we're planning to make in respect of interest on the rehabilitation fund would increase our provision even further and would, I believe, adequately cover the 200.5 million adjusted. We are currently busy going to engage in an exercise to see if that rehabilitation cost estimate is still reasonable. But Chair, even if it needs to be significantly lifted, the original rehabilitation trust deed provided for any additional costs that were going to have to be incurred in rehabilitation above the original estimate to be accrued over the remaining life of the mine. Since we do not need all of this cost immediately, we will be able to accrue any such additional costs over the remaining anticipated life of the mine, which is a very, very sound accounting principle, and which does not place us in immediate cash flow position arising from the rehabilitation. Chair, I hope that answers some of the questions that were raised on the finances. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Just to conclude around the two remaining questions around the State Capture Commission findings. We have had a briefing by the SIU, which is undertaking a detailed investigation. We have provided them with the documents required, and they have undertaken to, when they complete their investigation, to ensure that the NPA is briefed and charges are brought against the people who have been listed in the state capture report. And they certainly indicated to us that there wouldn't be a need for us to do it because they have all of the documentation, are able to do that. And I would think there wouldn't be a need for duplicate efforts by two different arms of the state to do the same work. And then the last question on the exploring oil off the coast. I am not aware of that, so I will be unable to answer that question. And just to emphasize that there have been no fatalities on any of the concession areas which is being mined by Alexkor and the RFC. Allow me then to turn it over to the chair. I think we've answered most. We haven't asked every question individually, but we've answered, tried to cover all of the questions that were answered in the answers we've given. So let me turn it over to Dr. Alexkor. Thank you, Chair.
Through you, Chair, I indicated that I would just comment a little bit on the governance, but before I do so, to add two comments. On the new mining contracts, we did mention this when we appeared before the portfolio committee in August, that the current contracts are not compliant with the deed of settlement and unanimous resolution. So in addition to the detailed response of Professor Fowler, just to indicate that the expertise that we have at our disposal, which includes experts in alluvial diamond mining, financial experts, and we are in the process of getting legal expertise as well, to ensure that we rectify, which is probably a legacy of what happened before, contracts that were seemingly set up with ulterior motives at times, including the benefit to the contractor that was disproportionate with the benefit to the community. Secondly, to say that the turnaround strategy and plans have not been discussed with the CPA because the CPA has not been properly constituted. So the AGM is supposed to be taking place on December the 8th, and we hope that will allow representatives to be appointed to the Richtersveld mining community and Richtersveld Mining Company, and properly represent the interests of the Richtersveld community in the PSJV board. But that goes along and takes me through to the comments on governance. The governance arrangements we also reported when we came to the committee previously, were set up in 2007. And what might have been entirely appropriate in 2007 is not appropriate now. It is complex. The management of the PSJV and Alexkor would not be able to get any work done if we continue with these current arrangements, because they would spend 100% of their time accounting to the various structures, the RNC, Alexkor, and the PSJV. So there really is a desperate need to make fit for purpose institutional arrangements that in fact would also ensure that the benefits for the Richtersveld community A, materialize, and B, are better protected than they are currently. So when this board was appointed, we came in with there having been a bit of a collapse of governance. There was no board in place. For Alexkor, the PSJV board had the CEO of Alexkor representing all three directors that serve on the PSJV board from Alexkor. There are matters which we have referred to previously and which was in our the forward to the annual report, which was for the period prior to our appointment in 2021, indicating the commitment to consequence management for those irregularities that have been uncovered. The indication from Mr. Green on the work that they're doing to regularize the finances is also about, was income and expenditure correctly attributed? Because there's only one provision in the unanimous resolution, which is that all the costs of mining and all the income from mining should then be distributed, income over expenditure, on the 51-49 ratio. And it seems to have been a bit of a lucky dip as to where expenditure was allocated, and the arrangements for commissions between Alexkor and the PSJV are certainly not enabled by the agreements that are in place. So it would be, this meeting we did not understand to be dealing with the details of governance, and it's something that we could deal with at a future presentation. But you have specifically raised the issue of the audit, and I'm sure on behalf of management and the board and even the deputy minister couldn't agree with you more that there has to be proper accountability, and we have to ensure that there is absolutely full sight of the financial position of Alexkor and the PSJV, and the integrated report for the 2022 financial year, which also was not during our tenure being properly tabled in Parliament. What happened is that, as you are well aware, there has to be concurrence from the Auditor General for the appointment of an external auditor if it's not the AG, and we did receive that concurrence. However, the concurrence was conditional because there were concerns that the AG had, and they were not in a position to do the 2022 audit themselves. It was an application that should have been put in by October 2021. So we prevailed upon the AG to opt in for 2022, which they declined. However, they are now considering the application because of the concerns that they have and the extra cost that would have been incurred, and which is unaffordable if we were to have the concurrence of the Auditor General for the appointment, the continuation for 1 year of the previous external auditors because of the concerns they've raised about areas of risk. So I hope that explains it succinctly, and we can certainly deal with it in more detail. There was communication from the AG last week to indicate that they will, that the opting in process is well on its way. So hopefully the audit will commence, and we can only apologize to the committee that it's late, and we're doing our best to ensure that, notwithstanding that we don't have financial statements that have been audited for 2022, that we are absolutely committed to ensuring that the information is made available to the committee and that we fix the irregularities that have happened. And we did also indicate to you in August that where there is a need for consequence management, we will certainly ensure that that materializes. So, Chair, I think those are there was one other minor issue. I think maybe it's not minor. I'm not sure what the reason for the question was about the company secretary. And prior to our appointments, the services that the role of company secretary was contracted out. So it's outsourced, and the outsourcing is for the Alexkor, as well as Alexkor has the 51% interest in the PSJV. So it's all company secretariat services that are provided by an outsourced service. We have asked the interim CEO to look at this to see whether it might be more cost effective to have an alternative arrangement with a full-time company secretary. But in fact, in terms of what the market rate is for this kind of service, it is a monthly payment is not excessive. So, and there was also a question on legal fees, and my suggestion through you, Chair, is that we can submit something in writing to you on exactly what the legal fees are. But there has been considerable legal expenses of trying to resolve the issue of the PSJV court-appointed non-executive directors who continue to serve. And we certainly have a very keen interest in the AGM of the CPA and trust that we will be able to have community representatives on the PSJV board going forwards, so that there is not the legal fees currently being incurred through disputes around who the representatives are. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Anakom. Honorable members, that is the response to our questions by the executive and the board, including the deputy minister. I think we have reached that time now of going towards the end of our session. And let me take this opportunity to thank you, honorable members, and thank the deputy minister, and the executive, including the board, for their work. We hope that every time we will have an improvement. We are expecting a step towards improving the situation at Alexkor. We still like to see this company being the state-owned entity, despite the challenges it is going through currently. With those words, we would like to thank you and ask you to leave our meeting with that appreciation of your work. Thank you. We'll leave with the all honorable members must be left behind.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the questions. Bye.
Bye-bye. Honorable members, it's time to get the minutes of the previous session. Can I ask the secretary to start taking us through?
Yes, Chair. Thank you. I've got two sets of minutes that I can run through, Chair. Is the minutes of the 16th of November, where Danielle briefed us on their progress update regarding the implementation of their turnaround strategy. Those are members who were present in the meeting. The delegation of Daniel was led by the Deputy Minister and the Chairperson of the board. Those are the opening remarks of the Chairperson. The Daniel presentation, a synopsis of what was in the report, the presentation, and then the discussions that were in the meeting, and then the responses from Daniel, including the adoption of the minutes of the 2nd of November and the 9th of November, 2022. There's a minutes of the 16th. Should I present the 23rd? These are minutes of the 23rd of November, Chair, where the Department of Public Enterprises presented the midterm performance report of DPE and state-owned enterprises. Those members were present in the meeting. The department was represented by the Acting Director General, Ms. Jackie Motisani. And then the opening remarks and synopsis of what was presented by the DG in the meeting, a summary of the issues that were raised by the members, and the resolution of the meeting, being that the DPE should ensure that the shareholder management bill is introduced in the National Assembly. Furthermore, it should address the issues raised by the Auditor General by strengthening controls in the department and state-owned enterprises. Thank you, Chair.
Sorry, honorable members, I was speaking while I'm muted. Honorable members, those are the minutes of the meeting of the 23rd November. Can I have a member to move for the adoption of those minutes, please?
Thank you, Chair. Is Mkwanazi, I move for the adoption.
Honorable Mkwanazi has moved for the adoption of the 23rd November minutes. Is there any seconder?
Dlamini second.
Honorable Dlamini has seconded that adoption. Tisang, can you take us to the second batch of minutes?
They were both presented, Chairperson.
No, we didn't adopt the first one then.
No, I presented both.
Respectively adopt them.
Come again, Honorable Kumete?
Chair, I'm saying respectively adopt them as presented.
Okay. That is the view of all the members, eh? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Honorable members, I think we have reached. Is there anything, Tisang?
Yes, Chair. Just to say that the documents that I've received from the speaker, I understand that the members could not open one of the documents because it was corrupted. It will be circulated in due course.
Okay. Thank you. Honorable members, that is the end of our meeting. I think you have received, sorry, before I close, you have received a correspondence from the Portfolio Committee which is coming from the Speaker of Parliament. And we were supposed to present that here, but I'm still waiting for the legal advice so that we can be in a position to move on that particular correspondence. I think in our next meeting, we'll be in a position to provide you with the way forward. Thank you so much. The meeting is adjourned.
Chair.
Okay. Mr. Honorable Gumede?
No, Chair, I was expecting that. I want to believe not unless I'm corrected. Is this our last meeting?
This is our last meeting according to the program, eh?
According to the program, it's our last meeting, Chair. And then maybe, Chair, we must also use this opportunity just to update members in relation to the study tour.
Okay.
Yeah. Chair, the committee have written to the embassy of South Korea for the study tour. So we are still awaiting, but we are informed that it takes more than a month for us to get the quotations, because for us to submit anything to our presiding officers in Parliament, we should have at least quotations from the embassies in South Korea. We submitted the letter about 3 weeks ago, and then we have been advised that we should look at a date in the break of March, because in December there will not be anyone doing work in the embassies. Up to today, you have not yet received any response from the embassy, but we are told that we must be patient from the DERCO, because that's where everything has been done through the. So as soon as we receive everything, we will do all the necessary arrangements and communicate with the members, and including ensuring that every member has got an official passport to travel. So Yandisa will also be communicating that regard in relation to the preparations and in terms of what we need to do. We will keep on updating the members.
Thank you. Thank you, Honorable. Mr. Sumi. Honorable members, that is the end of our meeting. The meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.